as an official resident anytime soon.
Radio is by far the cheapest and most accessible mass medium, reaching the widest audience in the world. Staying glued to one's handset to keep up to date with events as they unfold, keenly monitoring the news, or killing one's boredom. No doubt, radio is a powerful communications tool for marketing or campaigning for a cause. Radio is interactive. One listens and speaks. Indeed, it has influenced lifestyles of individuals, businesses, and society. Looking behind the scenes, one discovers that a top-notch radio production requires intensive preparation informed by the dynamic needs of a target audience at a particular time. Most importantly, making the final delivery off air depends on the appeal of the host to the audience to obtain their feedback.
It has created a new sense of a virtual community where the entire nation can very easily come together and follow one conversation. So it's easy to get information out there. It's easy to get feedback from people out there. It's easy to get the nation around a particular topic or particular theme at a point in time.
Such discussions have helped in shaping policy formulation and all that.
The fact that they provide a platform for debate, and the fact that now it's very easy for ordinary people to access it. The fact that we no longer have one unidirectional communication from government to the people, but we are having multiple discussions and feedback because of the technology.
Radio over the years has also offered the illiterate a platform to participate in public debate. This was a test case for the establishment of an Accra-based radio station 13 years ago, whose entire transmission is in a local dialect, Akan.
And then
Yo, where coach Karim Zito, youth director, Makumasi Santa Kotokobo Boko, one, and I watch him said, where you technical and walk asano. Wakamu kasa wundi obi a woni football mu a nya de abetia se we so wo kan mi de dada blese match ya hye na ne ne yesi go no obi age na ne.
The owner of the station felt that it's not only those who have been to secondary school or universities who have a lot of contributions to make for national development, but there are so many others who were forced to swallow whatever they had in their minds because they couldn't speak English. It has become so obvious that apart from P7, so many of the new stations that were coming up were either joining us or, making sure that everything was not just in English and that part of their transmission was in Twi. So they realized the importance of the ordinary people understanding what is being discussed. Instead of passing it through somebody, what is the station saying? They said something in English, I don't understand. Now they understood it themselves.
Most people accuse radio stations that use local language to transmit their programs of exaggerating the facts when they are broadcasting the news. What have you got to say about that?
I will be the last person to disagree with you, but I'm sure you will be the first person to understand why. You see, the whole thing is written in English, and they are translating it into Akan simultaneously. Now, it is virtually impossible to get everything as simply as possible. And sometimes people listen to it more. The way it is being read is more interesting. Very nice way of adding proverbs here and there, very interesting additions. But because there is no way of measuring how much addition is being done, some people are tempted, some of the readers are tempted to go beyond what is really intended.
Me pa pacho the ati wo camp ne say Black Stars for no yes South Africa for ma yi gigi wo mo pa wo mo sheda we a sheshe mini ne de bedada wo mu kire de akoso wo camp azana match no ahase.
To reach remote communities and vulnerable people, to facilitate communication, protect cultures, and reduce poverty as well as social exclusion, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, has been supportive of establishing community radios.
We have been assisting the government to establish what we call community radios. And the idea is to enable communities to actually use those radios in tailor-made programs that address their needs.
I've listened to stations that focus on fishing, stations that focus on farming in some of the local community areas. These stations give a lot of people what you call know-how. I listened to one of the stations in the Bronx Afro region that focuses on farming. It's a community station, focuses on farming. And it equips local farmers with a lot of information, which helps their own little economy.
There have been incidences of near instability in the country as a result of pronouncements made on radio. Often, the National Media Commission is criticized for being toothless and not applying sanctions. Audrey Gajekpo is a former board member of the NMC.
With everything else, there are excesses. And I blame the excesses on the fact that we don't have a good regulatory regime. In other words, we don't have a broadcast law. So we've experienced tremendous growth in the broadcast industry, in radio, almost 300 FM stations right now. The majority of them commercial, therefore they're looking to satisfy the bottom line, and no law, broadcast laws. And so we find excesses. We find that a lot of unverifiable material gets on air. We find that the language on air is not always one that is fit to air. We sometimes hear even swear words on air.
Historically, Nikola Tesla of Serbia is acknowledged as having invented a theoretical model for radio in 1884, although Guillermo Marconi first sent radio signals. Radio was started in Ghana in 1935, but it wasn't until 1995 when it was liberalized.
People say stuff on radio that they shouldn't be saying. People use radio to run down other people. People use it for their own propaganda purposes. That sometimes derails us as a nation from the real conversation we should be having.
You would agree with me that in the private sector, size in terms of people working cannot be compared to what we have in the public sector. And secondly, you match your resources to what you have in terms of the human resource and the logistics that you would provide for such resource to work. But over here, you and I would agree that we have so many people doing just a little. In the private sector, very few people are doing the work.
Licenses to operate radio networks are acquired from the National Communications Authority, renewable after every 5 years. Currently, there are 293 licensed radio networks operating within a finite spectrum of 87.5 to 108 megahertz in the country. Due to this, the same frequency issued in an Accra-based radio station can be issued to another radio network in any of the other regions.
Since sometime last year, we're no longer issuing any frequency beyond a 45-kilometer range. So anything that comes for an application in excess of that, the maximum range we'll do is a 45 kilometers. For other categories of stations like community radio, you do 20, you do 25, you do even do 5 for some of them. So what is happening is that there's a new policy in place that for the FM stations already in existence who have ranges in excess of 45 kilometers, when their licensing comes up for renewal, we're going to restrict all of these to 45 kilometers.
On a daily basis, the NCA conducts checks for pirate stations and also interferences from among radio stations with the aid of monitoring vans which detect signal within an 80-kilometer radius.
We have fixed stations. We have 4 in all. We have one at the Accra headquarters, one at Kumasi, one in Takoradi, and the other at Tamale. It also ranges from 20 meg to 3 gigahertz. With the fixed, we cannot do direction finding because they are fixed. So when we detect something on the fixed, then we use the vans to move in to where the illegal operations are happening.
Listen to the radio driving in your car. Radio gets results. Radio is there.
Though the NMC regulates content, it does not have the power to employ sanctions nor withdraw license. Neither can the NCA withdraw licenses based on unsavory content. At the end of the day, culprits go scot-free. Experts believe that, in the interim, radio stations must, for instance, have a delayed broadcast mechanism to ensure decorum.
The great importance and influence radio can have on public life and opinion requires journalists to use this medium with a great deal of care and responsibility, so that the radio can play its unique role in supporting peace, democracy, and inclusive development for all. This clearly provides journalists with the platform to report facts and to tell their stories.
Radio is not immune from global dynamics of change. New technologies are enabling it to move away from single delivery platforms to multiple platforms, including over-the-air transmitters, broadband internet, and mobile devices, as well as tablets.
Radio in the very near future, I think, is going to take the form of what happens in the Western market. It's going to be on a demand basis. As people's lifestyles change, they are going to demand to listen to radio when they can listen to radio. So there are going to be more downloads and podcasts, so that the shows will take place, but they'll be available for downloads and podcasts, so that if you are a doctor working during the day and you have more time in the evening, you can then download the show in the evening when you are driving home and listen to it, instead of in the morning when you're in the theater working, and you don't miss out altogether.
The invention of radio may have been some 129 years ago, yet an estimated 1 billion people worldwide still do not have access to radio today.
Radio is there no matter where you are. Radio gets results.
The days of analog transmissions are soon to phase out by 2015. Another evolution of a digital terrestrial transmission would have come to stay.
Loud and clear, no matter